Welcome to the ACSA Campus Tour, where every week we take you to a different school community, meet a district leader, talk to them about the successes and challenges they are experiencing during the COVID-19 pandemic. We talk to them about their social emotional wellness, and also what is the biggest challenge as we head towards the next academic year. Joining us today, the superintendent from Castro Valley Unified School District, Parvin Ahmadi. Parvin, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, you were part of the school reopening call to action documentation. It's a 45-page document that talks about the safe reopening of schools. You played an important role. Tell me a little bit about the role you played, what this document has, and how you hope that other educators are able to use it.
Yeah. We really all played a part in creating this. I want to thank Glenn Price's group for facilitating, because I think oftentimes when we're involved in really important conversation, it is important to have someone facilitating so that we can all share our ideas, think about, be creative, think about new ways of looking at things. So the superintendents on that team and myself and a few other people really wanted to make sure that this document was useful. I know that there is so much to think about as we try to think about reopening our schools. There are lots of unknowns. We have probably more questions than answers at this point, but we wanted to have a resource, just full of information that people might be able to use. But most importantly, I think we wanted to make sure that we show our commitment to students and equity. I think it was very important, and that's why we have our essential commitments and core values front and center to ensure that as we plan our reopening, we really think about all the unintended consequences for every single action that we take and how we can leverage our ability to support all students to accelerate their learning. So the document includes the two pieces that I just mentioned. In addition, modalities, different scenarios, and tons of resources that people actually found and dropped in to that document. And I believe that we will continue to populate it with more information, hopefully in the future. But we were hoping that it's a document that people can look at, and if you have questions, for example, about the kinds of things we can think about when we reopen our school as far as schedules, bell schedules, instruction, safety, and all the different pieces that have to come together like a puzzle to make sure that it's seamless. So we hope that people use it, and I know that all of us are always looking for feedback on any documents that we put out. There's so much information out in the world, and I think at this time, at times we find ourselves really overwhelmed with many plans and trying to figure out which one fits best to our needs. And I think keeping the families absolutely at the front and center with their students and their needs, and how that's going to look in the fall is really important. I'm just glad that we have a few months to think about that, not a few months, really, a few weeks, so that we can do a really good job, because this seems to be our new normal. It's not temporary.
And for those of you that are watching, you can access that 45-page document on the ACSA Resource Hub. That is content.acsa.org if you'd like to have an opportunity to look through that. Parvin, there is certainly, if you go through social media, there is certainly some frustration from parents, from the school community, students, about health and safety guidelines and about reopening schools. We are starting to see some guidance, some suggestions trickle in. We had the CDC put out their document, and a lot of people weren't very happy about that. We've had Los Angeles County Office of Education. They put out their guidance. They represent about 1/3 of the students in this state. As more trickles in, the county, the state, over this next few weeks, what is going to be your process for figuring out what the best way is to safely reopen schools?
Yeah, let me respond to that. The first part of your question and comment. I think people are frustrated because they just don't have any answers. I think we're all in the same place. And I think one of the things that I've tried really hard to do is keep our families informed, but be really brutally honest about the fact that we don't have all the answers. In fact, there are more questions than answers. And I think that's a big part of the frustration. When you look at, they've had their children for 8-9 weeks, basically teaching them at home alongside the teachers and educators, but they're thinking about next year, and the more information we can give them, the better. However, I think we also need to let them know that we don't have all the answers, from CDC document to the, to all these other documents that are coming along, to our health department locally, our county Department of Health. Their guidance is, but I'm still struggling to figure out, like, how many students can I really have in a classroom? Or how does a model work where you are expected to have the same teacher in the classroom with the same students all day long? That does not work in a middle or high school. So we, every week in Alameda County, we actually have a call with the Department of Public Health and our health officer. And we've been trying really hard to share with them the realities of what it looks like on the ground, so that as they're thinking about the guidelines and guidances that they're going to give us, that they have that in mind. Because like we talked about, the fact that it's very difficult to keep even two children away from each other 6 feet apart all day long. So how do we talk about cohorts and different schedules? So for us, regardless of what CDC and all of the documents that are coming out, we basically have to follow our county health officers' directives, because that's where all the documentation about COVID-19 and the cases and all of those things are actually, housed.
I know that you're now past graduation, which I'm sure you're happy about. Every district has its challenges, and that was even before the COVID-19 pandemic. Now you and your teams are working towards safely reopening schools, how you start the new academic year. But you still have those challenges, those ones that existed pre-COVID-19. And so I wonder, how do you go about the challenges that come with reopening schools while also recognizing the challenges that you still have to face? And how do you go about balancing those through the start of the school year and into the next academic year?
Yeah, I think you base all your decision on a equity framework, and you remember that your goal should always be to meet the needs of each and every child. And I think in saying that, we have constantly worked on closing the opportunity gap, making sure that students have access to whatever they need to have equitable outcomes. It's the same challenge, just heightened, because when you don't have the means and you're not at school, the impact of what's happened has been exponential on students who have been disadvantaged in the past, who are marginalized, who are underserved. And our goal should really be to accelerate their learning, and remember that this actually might be an opportunity for us to find more ways to be more focused on the needs of all students and what each group of student might need. I think we're looking at different schedules. Is there a possibility to actually reimagine and re-strategize how you have your intervention, how you set your multi-system of support in place, so that the students with the most need are getting the most support and the kind of support they need. I think consistency, regular engagement with students, checking in with families are huge, because we have to think about their needs academically, socially, emotionally, and their basic needs. I think it's really interesting because if some of us might have heard in distant past, when we talk about equity, for some people to say, well, that means that my child isn't going to get what he or she deserves. I think that that has shifted a little bit because there are families who weren't in the group that needed a lot of support and now do. So perhaps it's a different view of things that hopefully people will remember to be compassionate to one another. I've been so impressed by our community, whether it be supporting families with meals, with just about anything children have needed. But as we plan for next fall, we are really looking at how to support the needs of groups of students who have different needs. For example, our students with special needs. Do we have, different severe, moderate to severe classrooms? Do we have them come back full time? What do we do if we have an AV block? Can we possibly have some of the students that need their intervention? If before we had an hour of school-wide intervention once a day or once a week or twice or 3 times a week, can we actually increase that time? And how do we use our staff and cross-train them to support students? We have paraeducators, we have itinerant teachers. So how do we have counselors, all of us, how do we roll up our sleeves and actually get in there and work with kids and provide some consistency, routine, and high level of instruction and engagement?
Parvin, thanks so much for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you folks for joining us as well here on the ACSA Campus Tour. Remember, every Tuesday, we'll be here to talk to another district leader about what's happening in their school community. That comes your way every Tuesday here on the ACSA Campus Tour.